I'm going to go a little off topic before I start my message. Do any of you remember what you were doing 19 years ago today on a Sunday afternoon, a beautiful Sunday afternoon? Some of you were in the same place I was. And I did not remember this, but this afternoon, my dear friend in Kentucky texted me and said, "Happy 19th anniversary of your licensure." And I know that many of you were there with me to celebrate that day, and I thank you. And it made me think for a while this afternoon how truly blessed I am, and how she said, you've come full circle. And so true, because I had that service, that mountaintop experience on the 26th of March, and then within the next month, I would say, I got a letter from this very congregation, this beautiful congregation, Zion United Church of Christ, to serve as youth pastor. And today still, 19 years later, those kids are adults and parents. They're not grandparents yet, but they certainly are, thank heavens, right? But they're parents and they're living amazing lives. And this church blessed me so richly in that start when I was nervous and young, and so I had to say that tonight, to be thankful to all the people here, because it really was a beautiful beginning. And we wonder sometimes where God's going to take us, right? And moving into the sermon on the way, we get lost once in a while. So it's a beautiful day for me, and it's a beautiful evening for all of us to be together. Have you ever been lost? Or maybe not lost, but thought you were lost? I've had that happen. It's a terrible feeling, isn't it? Often, when we are lost, we panic and we wonder, how am I going to find my way? We may be trying to get back to a family member or a friend. We may be trying to get back to our safe, warm, loving home. Or we might be trying to get back to Jesus and our faith. When we're lost, in whatever circumstance it is, there are so many emotions that come tumbling out. Fear, sadness, anger. How did I let this happen? Or how could my family not notice that I wasn't right there with them? Uncertainty about the next moments and hours, and grief, if only momentary, about what has been lost from you. It's not so easy to get lost in an open space where there aren't very many people, right? Because it's not crowded, and you can see around you. But when there are crowds, it's easy to get lost. Consider this. If you have been or are right now lost from your faith, you are likely to be in good company. There's an organization called the Pew Research Center, and they look at statistics for Christianity. They report now that 3 in 10 people have no religious affiliation, none. The secularizing shifts are evident in the American society. So far in the 21st century, they show no signs of slowing down. And yet, all of you are here. You're the found sheep. You're the sheep who follow Jesus. That latest study from the Pew Research Center says that the religiously unaffiliated share of the public is 6 percentage points higher than it was just 5 years ago, and 10 points higher than a decade ago. 2 out of 3 people still identify as having a religious affiliation. But about a decade ago, 3 out of 4 said they identified with a religious affiliation. You could say I'm preaching to the choir tonight. You are the choir. You are the sheep. You are the found sheep, not the lost one. But it's a reminder for all of us that the world outside of this beautiful place is lost. And one of the things that Jesus is telling us, I believe, in this gospel tonight, is that we need to be part of the solution that finds the lost sheep. You noticed in all the passages tonight, right, the reference to sheep. And I did think while I was watching the screen before we started worship that Rhonda had done such a nice job of putting it together that I could just ask her to replay that. And you wouldn't even need to listen to me. It is all about sheep. In every one of those scriptures, there is a mention of sheep and a mention of Jesus, or the Anointed One. You can find a glimmer of hope in these statistics, knowing that those of us who stand strong in our beliefs within smaller but strong faith communities like we are able to see better when someone is lost from us. The space is a little bit more open, right? And you all know in your sanctuaries that you notice, because of course we all sit in the same pew. So we notice when somebody's not in their pew, right? And then we can reach out. We can be like Jesus, trying to find that lost sheep. I did, for just a brief moment, think about asking my friend, Pastor Farmer Mike, to round up a sheep and bring it. I know he's the cow man, but I know. Yeah. See what kind of a friend he is? He doesn't own sheep. But no cows in the sanctuary. Well, I do have friends who own sheep and they live in Granville. So you should be very lucky that I did not attempt to bring the real sheep, because if I had the real sheep, one of you would have had to play Jesus, and that would have been a lot of fun, right? I would say that for me, the times that I have been lost from my faith are very few. And some of that I attribute to my family, my parents, the way I was raised in faith. In fact, I was having a conversation with a parishioner just today, and we were talking about the differences in people, and I said to her, well, you and I were raised differently. We were raised to be in a faith community, to know the love and the joy that comes from that faith community. Not that we don't fight like a family sometimes, of course we do, but to be raised with that joy. And there are studies that show that children who are raised in a faith community, they do better in life because they've got solid roots. I wandered a bit. I was in my early 20s. I had just gotten divorced. It was the 1970s, and it wasn't, I guess I should say it was frowned upon. And I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure that God and the community would accept me. But Jesus was right there, looking for me, calling out for me, bringing me back to his arms, comforting me, and reminding me, just like the gospel does tonight, that we are all beloved children of God, no matter how far we've wandered. In the passage from Isaiah, who is one of my most beloved Old Testament prophets, Jesus becomes both the sheep and the shepherd. It was a long reading, and it began in verse 7, where it says, the part about the sheep, he was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth, like a lamb that is led to slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. Here, Jesus is the sheep, the one about to be slaughtered, and we know that there was a time in Jesus' life when he cried out to God, take away this cup of suffering. Surely Jesus did feel like the lost sheep that week, his last week. But then Jesus gives us, through Isaiah, another account of the lost sheep. All we, like sheep, have gone astray. We have turned, every one of us, to our own way. But the message from that gospel reading, that parable of the lost sheep, that sheep that's up there, you notice by itself, lost, is we can't see him, but Jesus is back there looking for that sheep. And Jesus is looking for us every single day. Maybe we are fortunate enough to never have felt that we were lost. But if we have, we know Jesus is there, bringing us back into his arms. That feeling of being lost, of not knowing how to get back to our safe place, we probably have all felt it sometimes in our lives. I have. It was the late 70s again. I guess that was a tumultuous time in my life. And I was trying to find my way after that divorce, and I was determined to prove to myself and to everybody else that I could make it. And I see Karen Swain here tonight. She was my boss at the time. And they allowed me to go to a professional meeting in St. Louis, but I was going alone. I had never gone anywhere like that in my life before, alone. But I went. I registered for the meeting in St. Louis, and I drove there by myself. I didn't know another single person or where I was going. Now, you have to remember, right, the 1970s, we were lucky if we were smart enough to take the map with us. There was no GPS, right? There was no cell phone. No, it was you and the map, right? And if the map was outdated, well. So I go to the meeting, and it was a really good meeting. I enjoyed it. I was proud of myself. But at the end of the conference, you can imagine what happened to me. I took one wrong turn, and I ended up in East St. Louis. And it was summer, and it was hot, and I had no gas because I hadn't listened to what my father said about always making sure you have a full gas tank. Lost. Just like that sheep. And scared, I might tell you also. So I rolled up the windows in my car, turned off the air conditioning because I didn't want to waste gas, and kept going. I couldn't find my way, and I was scared. I finally decided that I had to stop at a gas station and ask. But I was really afraid to get out of my car. I did. And Jesus was right there with me, drawing me safely back. I was able to follow the directions that the gas station attendant gave me and get safely back on the other side of the Mississippi and safely home. But I still, as you can tell, remember that scary moment. It was a growing place for me. I don't know that on that day I thought to myself, I was the sheep. Jesus was the shepherd. But I sure felt happy when I got home. During this time of Lent, perhaps you find yourself wandering a little bit spiritually. Again, you're here tonight. You are soaking up Jesus the shepherd. And I hope you can find comfort in knowing that Jesus is the good shepherd and is always watching. I asked for Psalm 23 to be read tonight because it is one of my favorites, perhaps yours also, remembering the Lord is my shepherd. If we know nothing else, knowing that Jesus is the shepherd and we are the sheep, then we are blessed beyond belief. If you get lost, Jesus will find you and bring you back. Again, you're all here tonight, gathered with other faithful believers. And Jesus is here, moving among these pews, touching each of us spiritually, and helping us to feel God's grace and mercy pouring on us. That gospel lesson that was read tells us, "So it is not the will of my Father who is in heaven that one of these little ones should perish." We shall not perish, because Jesus is shepherding us and knows when we've gone astray. How blessed and lucky we are. We might not even know we're lost, but Jesus knows. I do often wonder how folks who don't have the joy of faith find their way through the world. The gospel tells us that God looks out for all, even for the sinners, all of us, and encourages us not to despise the people that we see as sinners. Those that are astray shall not perish. We are here, each of us, for different reasons tonight. Often we pastors bemoan some things together, especially since COVID. It's a good excuse. Oh my gosh, are the people back after COVID? How many people do you have online? How are things going? How's your mission project going? What about your roof? Do you guys need a new roof? In Depew a few years ago, it was the boiler died. The word I never want to hear again in my life is the boiler died. But Jesus saw us through that, and yeah, right? Oh my gosh. So we do also, us, who are your leaders, maybe even your shepherds from time to time, have those doubts and get lost a little bit. And yet we're all here tonight for all kinds of reasons. This great gathering of sheep is here because we want to follow Jesus on the path to the cross. We are Christian believers, and we come together as a community to pray and to worship. I don't know about you, but I always feel so uplifted when I leave these services, often because I see the beautiful faces of all these sheep. And some of you I see regularly, and others I see at this time of the year. Every once in a while, we bump into each other at the grocery store, mostly when I can't find the cookie aisle and I'm running around in different places. And then I am the lost sheep again. But here we are. And even though Pastor Alex won't let us have a cow in, this is the pasture tonight, and it is full, and we are sheep, and Jesus is here, and not one of us is going to be let to go astray, because Jesus will go and bring us back. If you've been feeling a little bit lost from Jesus, I hope tonight you know and feel that you're gathered in, like sheep in the flock, like the mother hen gathers her chicks. The parable inspires me, and I hope you too, to go out into the world looking for the lost sheep, those people that call themselves unaffiliated with any religious organization, to go out and be the hands and feet of Jesus. If you have to get a shepherd's crook to help somebody, that's okay. Can you consider that you might be the shepherd for someone who needs comfort and support from a community of faith? Invite somebody next week. We'll be in Spring Valley. Invite them to worship with you Holy Week and to shout Alleluia with you on Easter morning. I'll close with just a quick story about losing my cousin Jason's son, just for a brief few moments. It was October 2019, and Gordon, his son, was 3 years old. So he was walking and talking by then. And it was a nice autumn day, and we made a visit to a pumpkin patch. The pumpkin patch, though, was not Bojo's Orchard in Granville. It was located right in the middle of the largest city in Canada, Toronto. I thought it was a little odd that we were going to the pumpkin patch in the middle of Toronto, but we did. Gordon wanted to go through the maze, and his parents were a little bit tired, and so I volunteered to take him. We entered the maze, and at the beginning, Gordon was near me, but as the maze is, right, you can get lost in there. There were twists and turns, and he ran ahead. I panicked because I could not find him. And my worst fears swirled in my head. What if there was a stranger ahead of us who was lurking to kidnap a child? What if Gordon was hurt? What if I couldn't get to him quickly enough? What if I came through the maze and out the end, and out to his parents. No Gordon. I had to confess then that I had lost sight of him, and I was mortified. As I recall, Jason went to one end of the maze, and I went back through the maze again, and I found Gordon. He had taken a turn different than I. I can still feel the relief that washed over me when I found him. Gordon was safe. Jesus had brought him safely back. If you're feeling like you're that lost sheep or that little child Gordon, remember, Jesus will leave the rest of the flock, all other 99, to come and find you and bring you back into the fold. Amen.